After the car crash that killed her mother, billionaire Benjamin Walker's daughter had been in a coma for over 2 months. 5 doctors failed, machines flatlined. Hope died slowly, until a black maid snuck into her room, knelt beside the girl, and whispered like a mother would. Seconds before Benjamin caught her, Sophie's eyes fluttered open, and what she said broke the silence, and every heart in that room. The city of Washington never truly slept, but inside the white marble walls of Mount Vernon estate, everything had fallen still. Since the accident, the laughter was gone. The lights dimmed earlier. The staff moved slower. Everyone whispered, as if even sound could hurt now. Benjamin Walker, once known for lighting up investor calls and boardrooms with confidence, hadn't smiled in 65 days. He hadn't sat at his dining table. He hadn't touched a drink. Not since the night he buried his wife and left his daughter breathing through a machine. At St. Helena Medical Center, tucked away in a private wing, his daughter Sophie lay silent. Her heartbeat was steady, but her eyes had not opened since the crash. Since that night. The world called it a tragedy. The media whispered about lawsuits. Experts debated brain swelling and trauma recovery. But Benjamin? He just stood behind the glass every day, like a man waiting to drown. 5 doctors had tried. They flew in specialists from Boston, Los Angeles, and Zurich. They brought machines that beeped and blinked, lights that scanned her brain, needles, probes, cold, sterile solutions. Nothing worked. Not once did she move. Back at Mount Vernon, a new maid had started just 2 weeks earlier. Her name was Amanda Hudson. She didn't speak much, just cleaned. She was younger than the rest of the staff, maybe late 20s, maybe early 30s, a quiet woman with deep eyes and a soft voice. No one asked her story, and she never offered it. But the first time Amanda passed the photo on the grand staircase, the one of Benjamin, Sophie, and his wife, all smiles in summer light, she paused. She looked at Sophie's face and something pulled at her chest. She didn't know why. She only knew it wouldn't let go. Every night after her shift ended, Amanda would pass by the same hallway, where Sophie's school shoes still sat under a bench, where her pink umbrella still leaned in the corner, where her presence lingered in silence. One night Amanda stopped in that hallway longer than usual. She turned, slowly, and made her way toward the study. She shouldn't have gone in, but something led her. Benjamin wasn't home that evening, off at another hospital board meeting, chasing another specialist, and there, on the mahogany desk, lay the hospital pass. St. Helena Medical Center, room 427, Sophie Walker. Amanda picked it up. Her hands trembled. She didn't plan it. She just went. The hospital was quiet. Shift change had just finished, and no one noticed her slip through the side entrance. She wore a white coat borrowed from the laundry cart in the staff hallway. When she entered Sophie's room, the air shifted. The girl lay still, her tiny frame nearly lost under the weight of wires and machines. The light hummed overhead, casting a pale glow over her peaceful but lifeless face. Amanda stepped closer. She removed her glove. Her hand, brown, calloused and shaking, reached for Sophie's pale fingers. She didn't speak at first. Then her voice cracked through the stillness. "I don't know if you can hear me, baby, but I'm here." She knelt beside the bed, her eyes filling with tears. "I had a son once. He didn't make it. God knows I prayed so hard, but you—" Her breath caught in her throat. "You're still fighting. You just need someone to remind you how." She leaned closer and whispered softly, "You're safe, sweetheart. Mommy's here." Back at Mount Vernon, Benjamin sat alone in his study, scrolling through his hospital app when an alert flashed across his screen. "Unauthorized access, room 427. He frowned, pulled up the feed, and what he saw froze him. His maid, Amanda Hudson, kneeling beside his daughter's bed. Without hesitation, he grabbed his keys and left the estate in a blur of headlights and fury. Amanda was still whispering when Sophie's eyelid twitched. She didn't see it. She didn't notice the nurse outside the room drop her clipboard, or the sudden spike in heart rhythm. She only kept whispering, "You don't have to be afraid. You're not alone. You are so, so loved." Then she began to hum, a soft lullaby, broken, ancient, full of warmth and memory. A song her grandmother sang to her, and her mother after her. The moment wrapped in silence until the door swung open. Benjamin stepped inside, breath sharp, voice thunderous. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Amanda stood, heart racing. I was just... But Sophie's fingers moved again. Benjamin's voice stopped. His rage froze in midair. He turned toward the bed. Sophie's lips moved, and in the faintest whisper, barely audible over the machines, "Mommy, if you were Benjamin, would you throw her out or fall to your knees and thank her? Let us know in the comments. What would your heart do in that moment?" The room fell silent, not the sterile silence of machines and unspoken grief, but a stunned, suffocating silence, one that wrapped around the people standing there like fog. Benjamin Walker's mouth hung slightly open, his breath frozen in his throat. Sophie had moved. She had spoken. "Mommy!" Amanda's eyes welled up with tears so quickly she couldn't even blink them away. Her lips trembled. She didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe. Benjamin took a step forward, almost like his body was moving before his brain could catch up. What did she just say?" he whispered. One of the nurses leaned in, her voice barely audible. "She said, 'Mommy.' She responded." Another step, then another. Benjamin reached Sophie's bedside, his hands trembling in a way they hadn't since the funeral. "Sophie," he said softly. "Sweetheart, can you hear me?" The little girl's eyes fluttered, then slowly, painfully slowly opened. They didn't focus yet. They were dazed, like waking from a deep dream that wasn't finished. But they opened, and Benjamin's knees buckled. He fell into the chair beside her bed, his hand rushing to hers like it was the first time he'd touched her in years. "Sophie, baby girl," his voice cracked. "Daddy's here. I'm here." A small tear rolled from the corner of Sophie's eye. Her lips moved again, but this time no sound came out. Still, it didn't matter. She was back. Amanda took a quiet step backward, not out of guilt, but fear. She had crossed a line that no maid, no employee, no outsider should ever cross. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to touch Sophie, speak to her, or sit beside her like she was her own child. She had broken the unspoken rules. And yet, it worked. The door opened, and Dr. Landry rushed in, breathless. "What's going on? We got a nurse alert." His eyes scanned the room. Amanda standing frozen, Sophie with eyes open, Benjamin, wide-eyed and holding his daughter's hand. Landry's voice dropped. "Holy God!" He rushed to the machines, checking vitals, studying eye movements, whispering to a nurse. Amanda stood there, still silent, still trembling. Benjamin finally looked at her. He stood. The stare he gave her wasn't anger anymore. It was confusion, disbelief, something softer, and yet unreadable. "What did you do to her?" he asked. Amanda didn't answer right away. I just talked to her," she whispered. "I held her hand. I told her she wasn't alone." "That's all?" "I sang." Benjamin blinked. "You sang?" Amanda nodded. Like a mother would. Everyone was still staring. The doctors, the nurses, even the security at the door who didn't know whether to escort Amanda out or fall to their knees like Benjamin had. Then Sophie whispered again, "Mommy." She looked toward Amanda. Not the machines, not the nurses, not even Benjamin. Her eyes, though weak, found Amanda's. And Benjamin saw it, the connection, the spark. The girl who hadn't moved in 2 months, looking at the maid like she was safety, like she was light. Amanda's voice was barely above a breath. She didn't need more medicine. She needed something warm. Benjamin swallowed hard. He had no words. For a moment, the room was suspended in time. No one moved. No one interrupted. Sophie's breathing steadied. Her hand remained clasped in her father's, and Amanda just stood, unsure whether to leave, speak again, or disappear forever. That's when Benjamin spoke again. "Who are you?" he asked softly. Amanda looked at him, her throat tight. "My name is Amanda Hudson. I was hired 2 weeks ago to clean the kitchens." He nodded once. Then, after a long pause, he looked at the head nurse. "Make sure she gets a visitor's badge." The room exhaled. As Amanda stepped into the hallway, her heart still racing, one of the younger nurses caught up to her. You really woke her up." Amanda shook her head. "I didn't do anything special." The nurse blinked. "But you did. You really did. If this moment touched you, don't just watch, subscribe. Every time you do, it tells us that stories like Amanda's matter, that love like this deserves to be heard. Don't scroll past, join the ones who believe in quiet miracles." Benjamin didn't sleep that night. He sat by Sophie's hospital bed as the machines ticked and beeped and blinked, this time not in futility but with purpose. Her vitals had stabilized, her breathing was stronger, and though her speech was limited, she was awake. Awake. But the weight of it didn't feel like peace, it felt like pressure, because it hadn't been his wealth or his connections or his world-renowned doctors. It had been her, Amanda, a maid. He watched Sophie rest and tried to make sense of it. He thought of his late wife, of the crash, of the moment he'd screamed at the surgeons to save his little girl while still wearing blood on his sleeves, and he thought about what Sophie had said the moment she awoke. "Mommy." Not to him, not to a nurse, but to a stranger who had touched her like a mother would. Back at Mount Vernon, Amanda sat alone in the staff break room, barely touching her tea. The other maids didn't ask where she'd been last night, but she could feel their eyes on her. It was all over the estate by now. The billionaire's maid had done what 5 doctors couldn't, and she didn't know whether to feel proud or terrified. Later that morning, the call came. Amanda was requested at the hospital. No instructions, no explanation, just a request. Her hands trembled as she tied her apron. She didn't wear the cleaning gloves this time. Something about that felt wrong now. She arrived in the hallway outside Sophie's room, and one of the nurses, the one who'd seen it happen, gave her a small smile. "She's been asking for you." Amanda blinked. "What?" "Sophie. She hasn't said much, but when she does, it's always one word, one name." The nurse paused. "Mommy." Amanda hesitated outside the glass door. Inside, Benjamin sat beside Sophie again, unreadable expression on his face. He looked up. Their eyes met. And for a moment, nothing moved. He stood and walked to the door, then opened it just far enough to speak, but not invite her in. "She keeps calling you that," he said. Amanda's voice was quiet. "I know." He looked at her differently now, less furious, but still guarded. "I don't know what to make of this." "I don't either," she admitted. Benjamin glanced back at his daughter, then down at his shoes. "I've paid for everything," he said, more to himself than her. "Therapies, neurology experts, a German AI program that can map dreams." Amanda listened. "And yet she wakes up to a maid." That word, maid, hung in the air like smoke. Amanda didn't flinch. "I didn't come in to be anyone special. I came in because someone needed to." He didn't respond. "She was alone in there, Mr. Walker," Amanda said softly. "Everyone was treating her like a case, not a child." Silence. Finally, Benjamin stepped aside. "You can see her. She's asking for you." Amanda walked in slowly. Sophie turned her head, weak but alert, and the second she saw Amanda, her tiny lips moved again. "Mommy." Amanda smiled gently and knelt by the bed. "I'm here, sweetheart." She took Sophie's hand. Benjamin watched from the doorway, arms crossed, heart tangled. Outside the room, the doctors began whispering behind closed doors. The nurse staff exchanged glances. And the press, though not yet aware, were a single headline away from tearing this story open. Later that day, Benjamin called his personal assistant. "I need full background on Amanda Hudson," he said quietly. Everything. There was hesitation on the other end of the call. You think she's dangerous? I don't know what I think, he replied, but I need to know who she really is. That night, Amanda returned home and sat on her twin mattress in a quiet corner of the estate's staff quarters. She touched her own chest, where her son once rested when he was born, where he no longer was, and for the first time in years, she cried, not for what she lost, but for the child she could still hold on to. By the end of the week, it wasn't just Amanda who noticed the change. Sophie was now eating small bites, responding to sound, and most of all, smiling. A little, a flicker, a twitch of joy that hadn't existed since the crash. And every time Amanda entered the room, it was like the machines quieted. Sophie's eyes lit up. Her tiny fingers would stretch toward her, as if they remembered the warmth. It didn't go unnoticed. Dr. Landry, once skeptical, now spoke more softly when Amanda was present. Nurses began logging emotional response spikes during Amanda's visits. And Benjamin? He hated how much sense it made. We'd like Amanda to remain involved, Landry said in a meeting with Benjamin, clipboard in hand. Sophie's neurological response is strongest when she's in the room. Benjamin folded his arms. She's a maid, not a therapist. She's something more to your daughter, Mr. Walker. Silence. Landry leaned forward. Look, I know this isn't traditional. I know you don't understand it yet. But if we're talking about what's best for Sophie. He paused, then added, sometimes healing doesn't come in the form of a degree. Amanda didn't want to be part of meetings, or conversations, or protocols. She just wanted Sophie to smile. So when the hospital offered her a temporary shift caring for Sophie during recovery hours, she said yes, not because she wanted the spotlight, but because she couldn't walk away now. That's how it began. Every day, Amanda arrived at the hospital at 10 a.m. She would bring fresh flowers to the room. She would speak softly to Sophie about the weather, about the butterflies on the curtains, about the color yellow, Sophie's favorite, as she'd whispered one day in recovery. Benjamin would sit in the far corner, silent, observing, measuring, and slowly melting. He began noticing things. How Amanda knew exactly when Sophie needed to rest, how she hummed when the child grew anxious, how Sophie responded to gentleness, not gadgets. One afternoon, Amanda helped Sophie sit up, her first time, and Sophie's voice cracked out, rasped but clear, "Daddy" and "Mommy." Amanda froze. Benjamin looked up sharply, their eyes locked. Amanda stood. I'm sorry, she whispered, backing away. But Benjamin shook his head. No, he said. Don't apologize. It was the first time he'd ever said that to her. Back at the estate, Amanda no longer entered through the side. She was dropped off by hospital transport now. The staff no longer whispered in judgment, they whispered in awe. Do you think she has healing powers? Do you think she knew the mother? Do you think he's falling for her? Amanda heard it all. She ignored it all. But in the late hours, lying on her small cot, her mind wandered too. He looked at me differently today. But maybe that's just grief. The next morning, Amanda arrived early. Benjamin was already there. He stood by Sophie's bed, carefully brushing her hair with a small golden brush. She used to hate this, he said quietly. Her mother would chase her around the house just to get tangles out. Amanda smiled softly. She has her curls. She does, he said without hesitation. There was a pause. I owe you more than a visitor's pass, Benjamin said. Amanda looked away. I'm not doing this for thanks. I know. Another pause. I just... He hesitated. I don't understand how someone like you, someone who's lost so much, can give so much. Amanda's voice barely broke a whisper. Because I know what it feels like to need someone and not have them, and just like that the air between them wasn't cold anymore. It was heavy with something unspoken, something new. At this point, what do you think he should do? Follow his pride or follow his heart? Tell us in the comments. It's not as simple as it looks. Amanda stood by Sophie's bedside, watching her tiny hands wrap around a teddy bear. It was new, a gift from Benjamin, one of the first he'd given since the coma. "You like him?" Amanda asked gently. Sophie nodded slowly. "I named him Sonny," she whispered. Amanda smiled. "That's perfect." Outside the room, Benjamin watched them, his daughter and the woman who had become, what, a nurse? A miracle? A stranger with too much significance? He couldn't explain it, so he did what he always did when something didn't make sense. He investigated. That afternoon, while Amanda took a break in the hospital garden, Benjamin returned to his office. His assistant had left a folder on the desk, Amanda Hudson's file. He hesitated before opening it. It felt wrong. But curiosity had a sharper edge than guilt. Basics. Age 31, born in Baltimore, Maryland. Former nursing student, dropped out 7 years ago. No criminal record. Employed in various domestic roles since 2019. A son, deceased. Benjamin paused. A name, Elijah Hudson. Born 2017, died 2020. 3 years old. He stared at the death certificate, his chest tightening. Cause of death, pulmonary infection, complications due to delayed treatment. Next of kin, Amanda Hudson, mother. Back at the hospital, Amanda sat alone on a bench, her coat pulled tight against the early spring breeze. Her fingers moved absently over the edge of her sleeve. She hadn't told anyone about Elijah in months. Most people didn't ask, and if they did, she'd lie, not out of shame, but survival. Because every time she said his name out loud, it broke something inside her. The night Elijah died, the hospital had sent her home twice, said it wasn't serious, told her to give him cough syrup and wait it out. By the time they admitted him, it was too late. No lawsuits, no apologies, just silence. And a funeral she could barely afford. That evening, as Amanda returned to Sophie's room, she found Benjamin standing at the window, arms folded. He didn't speak for a while, then finally he said it. "You had a son." Amanda froze. Her body went still, like a deer caught in headlights. She turned slowly. "Yes. Elijah." Amanda nodded once. Benjamin's tone was soft. "Why didn't you tell me?" She looked away. "Because he's not part of your story." There was a pause, a long one. "But he's part of yours," Benjamin said. Amanda swallowed hard. "He was sick. I didn't get him help fast enough, or they didn't. I don't know anymore. I still replay it." Her voice trembled. "He died in my arms." Benjamin exhaled slowly, and for the first time Amanda looked him directly in the eyes. "That's why I came to Sophie," she said. "That's why I couldn't walk past her door like everyone else, because I know what it feels like to be a mother who can't save her child, and I wasn't about to let it happen again, not if I could help it." The words hung heavy in the room. Amanda turned to leave, but Benjamin spoke again. "Thank you." She paused in the doorway. "For what?" "For not walking past." Amanda closed her eyes for a moment, then left the room. Later that night, Benjamin sat beside Sophie as she slept. He held her small hand in his. He thought about his wife. How she would have smiled watching Sophie call her bear Sonny. He thought about Amanda. How she had known, without being told, how to hold a broken child with more grace than any therapist ever could. And then he thought about Elijah. A name he would never forget. The next day, Benjamin waited for Amanda in the hallway. When she arrived, he handed her a small folded note. She opened it. Inside was a hospital voucher, a donation. Elijah Hudson Foundation, Pediatric Emergency Fund. Amanda's eyes welled with tears. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he said gently. "Just know that your son's name won't be forgotten." The days began to blend, not in the usual way, not in grief or helpless routine, but in something gentler, softer. Sophie was now sitting up, drawing, responding more. She called Amanda Mommy less often, not because she loved her less, but because she was finally remembering her real one. And Amanda? She didn't correct her. She didn't force Sophie to call her by name. She just loved her without asking for anything back. One afternoon, Benjamin arrived earlier than usual. Amanda was helping Sophie color a drawing, a clumsy sun, smiling clouds, stick figures with hearts over their heads. "That's you," Sophie said, pointing to a figure with messy hair and a big pink heart. Amanda smiled. "And who's that?" She pointed to another. Sophie shrugged. "That's Daddy," she said, "but he needs more color." Benjamin chuckled from the doorway. "More color, huh?" Sophie's eyes lit up. "Daddy!" She reached out and he came to her side. Amanda stood to make room, but Sophie grabbed both their hands. "Sit here," she said, completely certain. And they did. Together. That evening, Amanda stayed later than usual. The hospital room was quiet, dim, peaceful. Sophie was asleep, her tiny breaths slow and steady. Benjamin leaned back in the armchair beside the bed, eyes closed, head resting against the cushion. Amanda stood by the window, arms folded gently, staring out into the soft city lights. "You're tired," she said. "So are you." They smiled faintly. A pause. Benjamin opened his eyes and looked at her. "You know, I always thought healing had to come from formulas, protocols, logic." Amanda turned slightly. "And now," he shrugged, "now I'm thinking maybe it comes from a voice, a presence, a little warmth when the room is too cold." Amanda didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Sometimes people don't need fixing. They just need feeling." Benjamin nodded slowly. Another pause. "You're good with her," he said. "Better than most people I've paid 6 figures to. I'm not doing it for money." "I know." He hesitated. "I don't think I've thanked you properly. You don't have to." "I want to." Amanda turned to face him fully now. The moonlight painted her expression in silver. "What would that look like?" she asked quietly. Benjamin stood up. He walked toward her slowly, almost cautiously, like afraid to break whatever delicate peace existed between them. "I don't know yet," he said, "but I think it starts with me telling you something I've never said out loud." He took a breath. "I wasn't in the car that night." Amanda looked at him, surprised. "My wife took Sophie to her ballet recital. I was on a business call. I told them I'd come late. I never made it. She crashed while driving back alone." He looked down at the floor. "I wasn't there. And for 2 months I've told myself I failed her. That if I had been there, maybe—" "Stop," Amanda interrupted softly. She stepped closer. "You didn't fail her, Benjamin." His eyes flickered up to hers. "Grief lies to us. It tells us we're the reason something broke, but we're not God. We don't get to control the ending." He didn't speak. And for the first time, neither did she. They just stood there silent, side by side, as the monitors beeped gently in the background. A few minutes later, Amanda turned to leave. Benjamin walked her to the hallway. Before she stepped into the elevator, he touched her arm lightly. "Hey." She turned. "I don't know what's happening here," he said honestly. "But whatever it is, I haven't felt this kind of calm in months." Amanda smiled softly. "Me either." The elevator door opened, and as it closed behind her, Benjamin stood there a moment longer, watching. That night, Amanda lay awake on her small bed, fingers resting over her chest where her son used to sleep. She smiled, not from joy, but from something close. Peace. It was supposed to be a normal day. Amanda arrived at the hospital with fresh lilies, Sophie's favorite, and a small picture book she'd found in a thrift store. Sophie had started recognizing colors again, asking questions, even laughing. Amanda had started calling her Sunshine. And for the first time, Benjamin didn't just smile when he saw Amanda, he waited for her. But when Amanda stepped into the hospital lobby, she saw a small crowd gathered around a TV near the reception desk. Nurses, aides, even some visitors were staring in silence. She turned and looked, and froze. There it was, a tabloid headline. "Maid or Miracle Worker. Billionaire's daughter wakes after mysterious healing by black domestic worker." Photos. The hospital name. Amanda's name. Her face. And beneath it, questions about her background, her methods, and whether this was part of a media manipulation for sympathy. Benjamin was on the phone when she stormed into Sophie's room. "You leaked this?" Amanda asked, holding up her phone. "You let this happen?" Benjamin turned sharply, surprised. "What?" She shoved the phone toward him. "This, the media, my name, my face, my son's name. You told them." "I didn't. Amanda, I swear, I didn't leak anything. But someone did. Someone with access, with power." Benjamin's voice sharpened. "I have PR people, Amanda. I don't control every leak. I didn't approve this." "But you didn't protect me either," she snapped. "I didn't know I needed to." Her voice rose. "I trusted you. And I let you into my daughter's life," he shot back. "Into my life." She went still. And then, quieter. "But only when it was convenient for you." He clenched his jaw. "I've been trying to figure this out. What we are, what you are to her, to me. And I don't even know if this was ever supposed to happen." Amanda's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "I mean," he exhaled, pacing, avoiding her eyes. "I mean, this wasn't the plan, Amanda. It was never supposed to be you." There it was. The sentence. The one that shattered everything. Amanda's breath hitched. She stared at him, then slowly nodded. "Right," she said quietly. "Because I'm not the woman who fits the picture. I'm not the surgeon, or the therapist, or your next executive wife. Amanda, I'm the help, the maid who stumbled into a miracle." Her voice broke. "But I loved her like she was mine. I showed up. I didn't need a contract or a camera." Benjamin tried to speak, but she stepped back. "You know what hurts the most?" she whispered. "Not that you didn't believe in me, but that you believed in me just enough to use me." That night, Amanda packed up her things at Mount Vernon Estate. She left the hospital ID card on the kitchen counter. No note, no goodbye, just silence. At the hospital, Sophie noticed her absence immediately. "Where's Mommy?" Benjamin froze. He knelt by her bed. "Sunshine," he said gently. "She had to go." Sophie's lips trembled. "No." Benjamin tried to reassure her. "She'll come back, I promise." But Sophie turned away from him. For the first time since waking up, she wouldn't speak. Benjamin sat alone in his office that night, staring at his reflection in the window. The phone buzzed, his PR team calling, updates about media spin, legal containment, damage control. He turned it face down without answering. All the money in the world, all the headlines, and none of it could bring Amanda back, or fix what he broke. In her tiny apartment downtown, Amanda unpacked slowly. Every item was small, every memory sharp. She pulled out Elijah's baby blanket, still soft, still warm somehow. She sat on the floor, clutching it to her chest, not crying, just still. Would you have walked away like Amanda? Or stayed, hoping he'd finally see you? Drop your truth in the comments. This one hurts. But it's not over yet. The rain came down softly in Washington. It tapped against glass windows, flooded the sidewalks, blurred the edges of traffic lights and memory. Inside St. Helena Medical Center, Sophie lay in bed again, quiet. She still ate, still slept, but she no longer laughed. She no longer reached for anyone, not even her father. Benjamin sat in the chair beside her, arms crossed, staring at nothing. He'd brought in a new child therapist. They had colorful flashcards, puppets, interactive music. None of it worked. Sophie stared at the window, day after day. And when she did speak, it was one word. "Where's Mommy?" Benjamin hadn't heard from Amanda in a week. No texts, no calls, no word. He didn't blame her. But he missed her more than he knew how to say. Amanda hadn't watched the news since she left. She kept her head down. She took on night shifts at a retirement home, cleaned rooms that didn't need cleaning, scrubbed tiles just to keep her hands from trembling. She told herself she made the right choice. She had to walk away. For dignity, for peace. But late at night, when the city was too quiet, she would hear a voice. Sophie's voice. "Mommy!" And something inside her cracked all over again. At the hospital, Benjamin sat with Sophie as she held the bear Amanda gave her. Sunny. It was falling apart now, one ear loose, stuffing poking through the seams. He should have replaced it, but he couldn't bring himself to, because it wasn't just a toy, it was Amanda's handprint still there in the stitches. That evening, Benjamin stood in the estate's garden. It had stopped raining. The grass smelled fresh, alive. He remembered something Amanda said once. Grief lies to us. It tells us we're the reason something broke. He finally understood what she meant, because pride was grief's favorite disguise, and he'd worn it like armor. He got into the car, didn't tell anyone where he was going, just drove. Amanda heard the knock on her apartment door just after 9 p.m. She opened it slowly and froze. Benjamin stood in the hallway, completely soaked from the rain. No umbrella, no excuse, just him. She stared at him, said nothing. He exhaled. I didn't protect you. I didn't listen. And I let them turn your love into a headline. Amanda looked down. I don't want pity. This isn't pity, he said. It's confession. She stayed quiet. He took a step forward. I was wrong about everything, about how healing works, about what love looks like, about who saves who. He looked at her, tired, messy, vulnerable. I need you. Amanda blinked, eyes wet. He continued. But more importantly, Sophie needs you. Silence. She stepped aside. Let him in. They didn't kiss. They didn't even touch. They just sat in the quiet of her tiny apartment, side by side, the way they once sat beside Sophie when everything was fragile and nothing made sense. The next morning, Amanda walked back into the hospital. Sophie saw her, and the child who hadn't spoken in days then whispered, smiled, Mommy. Amanda walked straight to her. No hesitation, no apology. She held Sophie close, and the monitor beeped with perfect rhythm. Benjamin stood in the doorway, watching, smiling, letting go. Spring came late that year in Washington, but it came. Soft and slow, like healing always does. At St. Helena Medical Center, Sophie's room had changed. The curtains were yellow now. The exact shade Amanda said reminded her of sunshine. Drawings covered the walls, crayon smiles, big hearts, a little girl's world brought back to life. And in the corner, Amanda. Not in uniform, not with gloves or mops, just Amanda. Reading a story, Sophie curled up against her shoulder like it was the safest place on earth, because it was. Benjamin stood by the doorway watching. He didn't interrupt anymore. He didn't try to understand everything. He just felt. And for the first time in months, he didn't feel like a man who had lost everything. He felt like a father again. Later that week, Sophie was released from the hospital. The doctors called it miraculous recovery. The press called it unexpected. But Benjamin, he called it something else entirely. A mother's love in the body of a stranger who wasn't a stranger at all. Amanda didn't return to the staff quarters at Mount Vernon. Benjamin offered her a guest room. She refused. So he offered her a place at the table instead. Not as help, as family. She hesitated, then said yes. One morning, as the sun poured into the kitchen and Sophie played on the rug, Amanda sipped coffee in silence. Benjamin walked in quietly, holding a photo. It was the old family portrait, the one with his late wife Sophie and himself. Amanda looked at it. She was beautiful, she said softly. She was everything, Benjamin replied. But I think she sent you. Amanda blinked, stunned. I'm serious, he added. The way Sophie looked at you, the way you looked back. His voice cracked. She gave me the greatest gift once. And when I thought I lost it, maybe she made sure it came back to me. Amanda set the cup down, hands trembling. Benjamin stepped closer. I know this isn't what either of us planned. I know it's messy and complicated, and nothing like what the world expects. A pause. But I'd rather live in the mess with you than in silence without you. Amanda looked at him, eyes full. And Sophie? She already chose you, Amanda. That evening they sat on the patio, watching Sophie chase fireflies with a jar. Amanda leaned her head on Benjamin's shoulder. For once there were no words. There didn't need to be. It had been over 2 months since Sophie first opened her eyes. Since a stranger with sorrow in her bones whispered like a mother would. Since a man with more money than peace learned that healing doesn't come in currency, it comes in love. One night, Sophie woke from a dream, not crying, just restless. She tiptoed down the hall to Amanda's room. Amanda sat up instantly, alert. "What's wrong, sunshine?" Sophie crawled into bed beside her and whispered, "When you sing, it feels like Mommy's still here." Amanda held her close. "She is, baby." "How do you know?" Amanda smiled softly. "Because I feel her every time you call me Mommy." Do you believe true love can survive even after being tested this hard? Can it come from unexpected places or people? If you felt something real from this story, share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. Let's keep telling stories that matter.